Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be tracing the timeline of a case that completely captivated the entire nation. Step by step, we're diving deep into the 2021 cross-country journey of a 22-year-old woman named Gabby Petito. We'll look at exactly how what started as an idyllic, picture-perfect road trip ultimately transformed into one of the most highly scrutinized national investigations in recent history. So, let's set the scene. It's the summer of 2021, and Gabby, along with her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, are heading west in this converted white Ford Transit Connect van. They had a really specific, beautiful dream, you know? Gabby was a young woman from New York with huge plans for her future. She wanted to travel to America's national parks, document every moment, and really build this creative, adventurous life out on the open road. And to the public, that journey looked absolutely incredible. If you looked at their YouTube channel, Nomad Ecstatic, they projected this perfect image. Smiling videos, gorgeous sunsets, just the ultimate illusion of freedom. But the private reality behind the camera was vastly different. I mean, think about traveling for months inside a tiny, confined vehicle. It completely strips away your privacy, and that inevitably creates immense stress and escalating arguments. This really stark contrast between their social media projection and their hidden private struggles becomes a really crucial detail for investigators later on. That underlying private tension actually boiled over into the public eye on August 12th. Someone in Moab, Utah called 911 to report a domestic dispute, which prompted local police to pull their white van over. This recorded encounter is just such a pivotal moment because it marks a time when law enforcement interacted directly with the couple just weeks before Gabby vanished. Ultimately, though, the Moab police report concluded there was insufficient evidence to bring criminal charges. The officers separated them, interviewed them both, and while the report did note that Gabby had slapped Brian, they both denied that he had hit her. So, the police allowed them to continue on their trip. And as we now know, that single decision would face an intense amount of scrutiny in the months that followed. By late August, the timeline takes a really dark turn. On August 25th, Gabby had an excited phone call with her mother about her plans to visit Grand Teton and Yellowstone. She made her final Instagram post that very same day. But then between August 27th and 30th, all normal communication just abruptly stopped. No more phone calls, no more posts, nothing. Investigators would later determine that this vast, incredibly remote area in Wyoming was right where she disappeared. The entire investigation would pretty soon hinge on one chilling, undeniable fact. On September 1st, that white van made it all the way back to Florida, but only one person was inside. Brian Laundrie had driven back to his parents' home, and he left Gabby behind. For investigators who were frantically trying to piece together a timeline, this was the most glaring red flag of all. A cross-country journey that started with two people, ended with one. 10 agonizing days went by, with Brian back in Florida remaining completely silent and his attorney advising him not to speak with investigators at all. Gabby's family in New York officially reported her missing on September 11th. Instantly, the situation shifted from a family's private, terrifying nightmare into an official, rapidly escalating missing person investigation. Finding Gabby required a massive, multi-agency deployment across the Wyoming wilderness. We're talking the FBI, the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, local search and rescue teams, canine units, and aerial drones. But you know what actually helped narrow down the search to the Spread Creek area? A stroke of incredible investigative luck. A fellow travel blogger accidentally captured the white van in the background of their own footage, placing it in that specific remote location. Just as those search teams were finally closing in on the Wyoming location, the case fractured. Out of nowhere, on September 17th, Brian Laundrie's family reported him missing in Florida. So now, law enforcement is forced to manage two massive logistical nightmares at the same time, scouring the remote Spread Creek wilderness for Gabby, while simultaneously navigating the dense, unforgiving wetlands of Florida's Carlton Reserve for Brian. The whole nation was watching this unfold, exchanging theories online and hanging on to every single piece of breaking news. But the core investigative focus really remained on one question. What exactly happened out there in the Wyoming wilderness? Search teams meticulously combed through the rugged terrain, knowing time was running out and hoping that landscape held the answers they desperately needed. Tragically, the answer they found was absolutely devastating. On September 19th, those search teams located human remains in that remote area of Wyoming. 2 days later, the Teton County coroner confirmed the heartbreaking news. It was Gabby Petito. Just like that, this massive missing person investigation officially became a death investigation. The facts established by the forensic investigation were incredibly conclusive. The coroner and the FBI stated that the manner of death was homicide, caused by blunt force injuries to the head and neck, along with manual strangulation. The medical examiner also noted that her body had tragically been left in the wilderness for several weeks before she was finally discovered. With the forensic reality now established, the focus of the investigation shifted entirely to finding Brian Laundrie. On September 22nd, a federal grand jury indicted him. Now, interestingly, this initial warrant wasn't actually for murder. It was for the unauthorized use of Gabby's debit card. Investigators found digital evidence that he had used her financial accounts as he drove back to Florida between August 30th and September 1st, while she lay deceased in Wyoming. We fast forward about a month, and the sprawling Florida manhunt finally comes to an end. On October 20th, investigators searching the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park found some personal items belonging to Brian, specifically a backpack and a closed notebook. Shortly after that, they located human remains nearby, which were later positively identified as Brian Laundrie. So the physical search for both of them was over. But the investigation itself wasn't quite over yet. That notebook became a critical piece of evidence on the FBI's table. Inside, they found written statements where Laundrie explicitly claimed responsibility for Gabby's death. But of course, the FBI didn't just take a written confession at face value. They rigorously cross-checked his claims against the established physical evidence, the timeline, and the forensic autopsy to make absolutely sure they had the verified truth. That exhaustive process led to their final conclusion. By January 2022, the FBI officially closed the case. Their final statement made it very clear. All logical investigative steps were completed. They confirmed Laundrie's sole responsibility for Gabby's death and his own death by suicide, definitively ruling out any other suspects. The criminal investigation was officially over. Looking back at all these facts, I think it's really important for us to separate the sensational media spectacle, the massive online true crime phenomenon, the intense public scrutiny, the civil lawsuits, from the profound human loss at the center of all this. Because at its core, this is a deeply devastating tragedy about a 22-year-old daughter, a sister, and a friend whose entire future was stolen from her. Even though the case is closed, it still leaves us with so many profound, unanswered questions. Like, why did the relationship deteriorate so rapidly? Or could a different kind of intervention back in Moab have completely changed the outcome? These are heavy questions, but they've sparked a vital, ongoing national conversation regarding the warning signs of domestic violence, how police handle these calls, and how society balances helpful public awareness with dangerous internet speculation. Gabby's family has been working tirelessly to reframe the narrative around this case. They want to ensure that her legacy is not just defined by a tragic crime, but that it actually fuels missing person awareness and domestic violence prevention. They want everyone to remember that Gabby's life existed long before the search, before the headlines, and before she became a household name. She was a bright, creative young woman who just had a massive passion for travel. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. When this case is discussed years or even decades from now, what are we going to focus on? Are we merely going to remember the details of the crime? Or will we remember the life, the art, and the dreams of Gabby Petito? True justice in how we tell these true crime stories requires us to center the victim. Thank you so much for joining me today.